You look so good.
Oh, I just got off of client calls.
Oh, so did I. That's the shame of me. You pick and choose which clients you know it's acceptable.
That is so true.
My house right now, I might have to show you. I don't even think I can because it's freaking, it's so shameful. We had to move everything out of our basement to our main floor, which was like a month ago, because we had to get treated like for termites, because you kind of do that every, I don't know, Canada, Toronto area, this area, which was fine. We did it. But now all of the boxes and stuff are still there. But then like everything from my styling, like there's literally shit everywhere. Like it's out of my office is like, I'm going to show you. It's like, this is bad. Like this is the shit. It's just like, and I said to Dave, you can tell the level of stress I'm under and overwhelm by the absolute disarray that is our house.
Yes. And I'm this exact same way. And my husband and I joke that you can tell the level of overwhelm that I'm under. It depending on like how much of a trail I leave behind.
Yes.
Right? Like it's just like, oh, she was here.
Yep. Like Dave just had to take the car, and I had 2 styling days in a row, which is just a lot of schlepping, a lot of shoving things into the car. And he wants to go get some booze. And he's like, can you just like empty at least the passenger seat for me? No. And I was on a client call right before this, and he came in, like I had like 10 minutes before we chatted, and he's like, so you didn't empty the car? And I was like, no. So the car is also full of shit, because I just came home yesterday and I was like, I don't have the wherewithal to deal with this. And I'm telling you because I feel like you can relate.
I get it.
Yes, she does.
Get it.
I get 100%. You. So for people listening, I'm keeping all of that in.
Oh, I love
it. I am talking right now to Kristen Carter, who is from I have ADHD.com.
You got it.
I found you. I was diagnosed like a year and a half ago. I don't know how I found you, but I found you. I was in your Facebook group. You were doing lots of awesome lives. I was in your podcast. And so
back when I had a Facebook group.
Oh, you don't have one anymore. Did you find it too overwhelming?
Ooh, we said bye-bye to that. Yeah.
Why? Tell me why.
It was very overwhelming in that there was just a lot of comments, a lot of like having to check in and make sure everything was okay.
Because like people were being like shitty to each other?
Yeah, they were just really not that kind. And what's so cool now is like with the focus program, we have our community on Slack, and everybody is so cool. Like when you build a community intentionally, slowly, whatever, you can build your people. But when it's just like, hey, this like free Facebook group and like 5,000 people join, you're just like, oh, wow, there's like a lot of different personalities here that are just creating different vibes.
Yeah,
so, and vibe matters to me. Like vibe matters a lot.
Yeah, especially if it's just weighing heavy on you that like these conversations are happening in a group that I created, and I kind of feel like I need to intervene. And now it's just this added level of something that I need to deal with that I don't want to.
Totally. Yeah. And from a business standpoint, it wasn't like making any kind of return on investment. And so we got to the point, and by we, I always say we, I'm like, it's just me. I got to the point where I was like, like it's a no. We're not doing that anymore.
I'd love to chat a little bit about like what your ADHD journey was.
So my ADHD journey, I was diagnosed at around like 21 when my dad was diagnosed in his, I think, early 50s. And so he was diagnosed, and then as soon as he was like, listen, you totally have this too. And I was like, no. Gross, Dad, ew. And so I was just like, it's not possible. And, you know, I was probably like 19 when he started talking to me about it. And you just know everything when you're 19. Obviously. So, but eventually college got hard enough that I was doing, you know, I had A's and F's. So it got overwhelming enough where I reached out and was like, oh, okay, I'm willing to go talk to somebody about this. And I was diagnosed immediately, and medicated immediately, and felt a huge difference on medication, like huge. It was like people describe putting on glasses and just seeing everything so much more clearly and being able to like think and hear my thoughts. And I remember being like, is this what people feel like? Like, is this what the rest of the world is feeling like? And so it was very stabilizing for me. And then, you know, I just kind of, it's a different story. Like getting diagnosed and getting on medication, huge. But I still didn't have any strategies. I still didn't really know about ADHD. My doctor didn't tell me anything other than, okay, you have ADHD. Here's some Concerta, which that was helpful, but I could have used a little more description around what it was. And so, you know, fast forward, get married, have kids, really not reaching any sort of potential, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And I'm not sure what really made me dig into it, but I just started like researching it. And then when I did, I was so shocked by like, oh, so like my sucky memory is not just because I'm a terrible person. Yeah. When I arrive late to everything, it's not just because I'm selfish. When I explode at my kids, it's not just because like I'm a monster. Like I had no idea. Yeah. Like I think there are so many adults with ADHD who are not even aware of the symptoms, you know, which is just so shocking. So when I really started to understand that, that's when everything began to change. And I got a coach, and that was like hugely transformative. Started the podcast. That has been so fun, and started a business that has also been fun-ish. No, just kidding.
I feel you. Yeah.
Fun-ish. No, it's really fun. And actually it's shockingly successful. So it's like there was a need, and it's really fun to have found a space that where there's like a problem, I can offer a solution. It's a very easy value exchange. Like it's just really working well. So I've had 2 businesses prior where the value exchange it just wasn't as profound. So like you offer piano lessons. So like there's millions of piano teachers. So like, yes, I had a studio and I had 25 students and blah, blah, blah. But number 1, it's not scalable. Number 2, like a lot of people are doing it. And then I had a tutoring business, and the value exchange there was cool, but I was overcharging without even understanding that. So like there were things that I just didn't know. So that's kind of like my ADHD journey. I still 100% have ADHD. So I have a successful, you know, multiple 6-figure business. And I also like ruin boxed mac and cheese and can't get my kids anywhere on time ever. Yeah. So it's this dichotomy of having one foot in like success and totally killing it, and then another foot in like, I am a total hot mess and I have no idea how to like survive without people taking care of me in these areas.
Oh my God. This is why I don't know how you have kids in the mix. Like I can't imagine rolling in kids to this hot mess of a life.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like even more explosive and even more messy and even more triggering.
Do they have, I forget, do your kids or one of them or either of them?
One of my kids is in the diagnosis process.
Okay.
So he actually had his last of 4 sessions today. So when I, you know, like I am pretty sure he has it. Like I'm convinced he has it. But I didn't want to just go to his family doc and be like, I think he has ADHD. Like I wanted to make sure that we go to a psychologist who's going to write a report, you know, the opposite of what I had.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what all parents want, is the opposite of what they had as a kid.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Yeah.
I'm curious if you could, you know, back when you said you were in college and you were kind of like the A's and the F's and then like you might have said overwhelm there. I'm not sure, but I'm curious, like what was the feeling like? I'm curious to hear you describe what the feeling that you were struggling with in college that made you say, okay, yes? And number one, I'm curious to hear someone else describe it, because sometimes, I don't know about you, I try to describe it. It never sounds like a big deal, but it's like this inner working that is really difficult to describe. And number two, I've had a lot of people, because this is obviously a design podcast, but I've also been very clear that it's a selfish podcast for me to learn things that
love. That's so cool.
So, but also like for me, this is like a big piece of figuring out how to run a successful business. And when I posted about my diagnosis, there's a lot of people who were like, what? Yeah. And which was, I wish that I had that, right? So I'd love for you to explain your experience of like, what was it feeling like that made you say, I'm doing this? Like, okay, I'm going to go talk to a doctor to see if people can relate.
For sure. I think that it was a combination of overwhelm, which I don't really experience anymore, which is wild.
Really?
Yeah. And I can talk a little bit more about that. But the primary thought that was causing that was like, this is too much. It's too much. It's too much. Like that thought was just served up to me on a silver platter 20 million times a day. This is too much. I can't do it.
This as in
whatever. So like school or a conversation with someone that was like conflicting, or like all of the things that I had to keep in my mind because I never wrote them down. Obviously, no ADHD is going to naturally write things down, right? So like for me, I never wrote things down.
That's so funny. I never used to either, but there was a moment probably 4 years ago when I realized I don't remember things. So you have to email me that thing that you told me in passing or text it to me.
Totally.
If I don't have a pen and paper, like I realized it took a long freaking time, but yeah.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is like, it takes us well into our adulthood to realize those simple things. Whereas like my friends have been like bedazzling their planners since like third grade, you know, and writing things down and color coding and always knowing where it was. And I'm just, I remember like looking at, I can actually see myself, like I can remember looking at my friend. She's writing the homework down in her planner. And I'm just like, how are you doing this? Like, how do you always have your planner with you in the same place? And like, you have different pens that you use for different subjects. Like, I don't understand what is happening. Yeah. So it was a combination of overwhelm, but then also frustration. I think frustration was a big one for me in that, like, I know that there's more. I know that I have more potential. I can't understand. I know that I'm smart. I don't understand why other people are able to do this and I am not. There was a very large disparity between the way some people were functioning and the way I was functioning. And I knew it was not like an intelligence issue. Right? I just knew it. And sometimes it is an intelligence issue, but I just knew for me it wasn't. So it was just this frustration of like, what in the world is going on? Like, why is everyone else functioning so much better than I am? And that's really like the combination of the two, they got intense enough that I was like, okay, I'm ready for someone to give me answers.
And okay, I am in awe of what you said before you shared all that. You don't feel that overwhelm anymore starting when? Like, do we have a pinpoint of like the meds helped so much? The strategies, like tell me, because I live in a life of overwhelm every fucking day of my life.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it was hiring a coach who coached me on my thoughts. So every strategy that I've been given was like, you should do this, you should do this. But ADHD is not a disorder of not knowing what to do. You already know what to do. Like, so when somebody is like, they make a suggestion, like, oh, you should try this. It's like, okay, thanks, Linda. But like, yeah, exactly. Like, I already know what I'm supposed to do.
I could do that. I would do that.
100%. So I hired a coach who taught me how to manage my thought life. And that was everything for me. And so like the thought, this is too much. I don't have that thought anymore. It's like gone. So I only, like, I'm very strategic. And yes, like, of course I do take different actions. Like I say no to almost everything. I've hired support. I plan out my days sometimes. Like I know that I'm very good with like appointments. And so I try to keep my days very appointment heavy, because if I have an appointment, I'm going to keep it. If I have 6 hours free, like it's 50-50 whether or not I'm going to use that wisely. Right. So I've figured these things out about myself, but mostly my number one strategy is writing everything down, doing a brain dump, getting everything out of your mind, everything. So I didn't realize how much I was just carrying in my mind. It was like this obese, very difficult to manage thing that I was not in control of. And so every day, a couple times a day, I just dump out my mind. What's in there?
Every day, a couple times a day. Do you have an example of a brain dump you could show me?
Oh my gosh.
I'm curious. Like, give me some examples of like,
okay,
hey, like you're sitting down. Yeah.
Is just writing down whatever comes to mind. So I do have examples. So I have this.
I'd love to see an example.
This is
That's
my
your name?
book. Yes.
Like, was that your brain dump?
But I have all of my clients have a different workbook. I mean, a different notebook. But I'm like, okay, I'm my most important client. So I'm going to have one too. My old ones are there. I just started a new one, so I don't have it in front of me, but they sound like, I hate everyone. My husband is annoying. Anything that comes to my mind. This is so stupid. I can't believe I have to do this today. I hate having to meet with this person. I have to get milk. My mom wants me to cook dinner tonight. I'm not sure if I want to do that. How do I even decide? Get pancake mix, whatever. I don't even have pancake mix in my home, so it's hysterical that I said that. Like the first thing that came to my mind. It's just getting every single thought out. So it's just like the crazy. It's just like get the crazy out of your mind and dump it all out. It's cleaning out the clutter. It's like lifting up the bed skirt and like
getting the dust bunnies out?
Yes, getting all of that junk out. And then you kind of look through and you can like have a chuckle at like what's there. You're like, wow, okay. Yeah. But then the things that you need to remember, like, I need milk and pancake mix. Okay, I'm going to like move that over to my grocery list. Cool. All of the rest of this is just drama. I'll see you later. And you just throw it in the trash.
I didn't realize that was like, anytime I've attempted a brain dump, it's been very like specific, like brain dumping the tasks for my business.
No.
So that's the thing I have not been doing. Well, I'm not going to say right or wrong, but that's not what I've been doing. Yeah. Sometimes what is the catalyst? Like, is there like, oh my God, I'm feeling pretty intense right now. Maybe I should brain dump. Is that, or is it just like every day I should at least try to do it once and I'll know when it's later?
It's so different for everybody and it doesn't matter at all. But times when I do it is when I sit down at my desk and I'm like, okay, I've got 8 hours in front of me. Like, where am I going? And I just like get everything out and then try to like, how do I want to manage my time today? So that is a really good time for me to do it. When I'm triggered, 100% I will do a brain dump. A lot of times I'll do them before bed just to like clear my mind. And then because previously, like pre-mindset coaching, pre-thought work, I would lay down in bed and that was the first time of day that I could hear my thoughts. It was
that's what happens to me.
Yes. So brain dump before bed, I think would be a perfect time. So have a little notebook right next to your bed. Doesn't have to be cute. You can just shove it under your bed and grab it when you need it and just like write and don't censor yourself. Write every single thing down because so many of us are just carrying around thoughts that we didn't even know were there. And a lot of those thoughts are creating results for us that we don't like. That's what's fascinating.
Like it could even be like, I feel like shit or I'm not good enough. Like it's just anything like 100%. That. Just whatever you're feeling.
And then if that comes out of my brain, I ask myself why, and I write that down.
So I have been working with an ADHD coach. And it's funny, I'm so excited to hear you say that it was the thought work that was so helpful because she's definitely working. I'm a very all or nothing,
Love.
black and white, like,
Yeah.
you know, so she's really trying to have me like, when something gets triggered, like stop and figure, like work through these, like whatever mantras, questions, whatever they were. I can't remember off the top of my head. But for you, like the thought work that you were saying, like you said, I forget what the thought you said, I don't have that anymore. What was it?
I don't have, it's too much.
And I would like, if you could try to help me understand like what it is about the thought work that you have worked through that you think, if you don't know for sure, that has gotten you to a point that you don't feel that anymore. Like, I know the brain dumping, obviously, like I'm curious of what you think it might be that has helped in your mind, because I don't expect you to have the exact answer.
I think some of the thoughts that we have that just go unnoticed, they really are like us punching ourselves in the face. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll give you an example. It's too much is one of them, but I think there's another one that is a better example, and that would be like, I don't have enough time for this. Mm-hmm. I don't have time for this. Anytime we think the thought and really believe it, that we don't have enough time, what we end up doing is just like spinning out, buffering, like wasting our time. So the thought, I don't have enough time, is us essentially punching ourselves in the face. It's like, oh, like when I think I don't have enough time, what I end up doing is creating a scenario for myself where I literally don't have enough time because I've been eating Cheetos and watching Netflix, right? And so like literally I don't have enough time, but it's not because I didn't have enough time, because time is just a mental construct that's just like whatever. It's just because I started to have drama about time and I couldn't be productive in these moments. Mm-hmm. And so I started to realize which thoughts for me personally, I was thinking that were just like me, just sitting here punching myself in the face, being like, ow, ow, ow. And so my coach would be like, how about you just stop punching yourself in the face? Like that could be cool. And when you really see it, when you really see like, this is too much, actually leads to me spinning out and thinking about it and putting it in my face over and over and overwhelming myself. Yeah. Like that's me punching myself in the face. When you see that, nothing really has to happen other than like, oh, how about I just stop?
Yeah.
Like I'll just stop. So when I would notice like, oh, I don't have enough time, the process went like this. It went like, notice that I waste my time and work backwards from there. Why did I waste my time here? Oh, it's because I was thinking I don't have enough time. Okay. So you start like after the fact. And then you get to the point where you actually notice the thought, like, oh, I don't have time for this. And then I'm like, whoa, that's like a warning signal, like warning, you're about to do something stupid. And so then I would just like literally stop and brain dump right there. Is it true that I don't have enough time? What's going to happen if I actually believe that? Oh, I'm going to be eating Cheetos and watching Netflix. Okay. That's not going to make sense. So like, how about we just like, how could it be true that I might have enough time? Mm-hmm. How could it be true that like, I could probably get this done, or I could get a C minus version of this out in this amount of time.
Yeah. Was procrastination something that you struggled with personally?
Totally. Yeah. Totally. And I still do sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, before we get to that, I'm curious. I know you're not a doctor, so I'm curious if in your experience of your clients that you've worked with, if anybody, because I am trying to work through my meds right now and figure them out. I don't have that. Oh, this is what, like, I don't have that like feeling. Which then puts me down a like, well, maybe it's because I don't have ADHD and I just maybe suck. You know, like, and I'm not to make you feel like you have to say yes to make me feel not weird, but is that something you've had? If some clients say like meds just didn't work for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And Dr. Barkley, in his book, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, which I absolutely love, like the research that he has done says that about 10% of people find no value from ADHD meds. But in my experience, the more common thing is that like, it's just not the right med yet.
Yeah.
It's just not the right dosage yet.
Yeah.
And actually I went back on, so like I was on Concerta for a while, like a long time. And then I had babies and I wasn't on any meds during that period of time, which if I could go back and do it again, I'd be medicated at least for anxiety. My goodness, if I could do that again. Like that version of me needs a hug. You know what I'm saying? But now, so then after all of that, I went back on Concerta and it just did not feel good anymore. I was more agitated. I was much more anxious. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Like it was just like obvious that it was not the right choice anymore. So I'm actually on a non-stimulant now and it's like great.
And it does work because that's kind of where I might cut some of this out. I don't like to,
That's fine.
I don't want some people to get too medicated about stuff,
That's
but you know, not a doctor, I should say. Any of this that does air, like not a doctor, talk to your doctor. Not all meds are equal.
Talk to your doctor.
But so my ADHD coach, like first of all, I was like calling my ADHD clinic back. I was like, in August, I was like desperado. Like I need something else. I was in a very bad place and they were not calling me back. Then they finally did. And then I called my doctor they told me I needed to get another referral back to see them. Doctor did it, called them. They wouldn't get me in, called my doctor. I'm like, I need you to get me to a doctor that can help me with my meds. And then she referred me to another clinic. They're like, we don't accept people unless you're doing the whole thing again, which is like $1,400. And I'd already done it and, you know, like got covered by our benefits and stuff the first time. But I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I already did this. I just need help with my meds. And then I finally found that my ADHD coach, and she was like, her husband happened to be a psychiatrist. So she was able to get me with him, which was incredible. And we've been working together. It's just been like, probably going to 3 weeks now.
Oh, okay.
He actually suggested an anxiety med on top of, because he's like, it could be that your anxiety is impacting the meds, because anxiety can really mess with your executive function. Yep. I was like, I didn't know that.
Yes.
And I didn't even know what executive functioning was until I was diagnosed. And then I'm Googling, I'm like, all of these things are my issues. Like all of these. And now I sleep at night. I wake up every night at 5 a.m. without fail though, which is a problem. We're trying to work through that. Yeah. But for me, going to bed, what you described is, I basically what you said is like, yeah, I am so busy throughout the day that I don't have time to think. Yeah. Yeah. But in bed is when all hell breaks loose up in here. And it's like, no sleeping. Loud. It is loud and it is scary and it is terrible. Yeah. And it goes up and down for me. Like it depends on how heavy my workload is, how impacted I am by that. But anyways, I still am like, not, you know, it's a work in progress. And I'm like, I'm not willing to give up on meds. Like I want, you know, I want to keep trying to figure this out because I don't want to live like this, whatever. Anyways, back to procrastination. I'm curious about, for you, is it just like an ongoing everyday working through it? Like to me, it's like, I feel like it's so exhausting to work through the procrastination to me. Like it's exhausting. And it's like, I don't trust myself. It's like, I get afraid to take on work because I don't trust myself to do what I need to do. I'm curious if you relate to that feeling or, what your thoughts are and how you work through, or how you've been working through your struggles with procrastination.
Yeah. So I would say that there are a couple key areas of my life where I do procrastinate on the regular. So one of them is podcasting. It is so hard for me to get myself to sit down and pick up my mic and like record a podcast. And that is an area where it shows up all the time. Another area where it shows up is, you know, for my coaching program, I write a workbook every month and it's hard. It's hard to write
a workbook means like you create like a new curriculum.
Yeah, basically,
Yep.
like
Okay.
I actually have them like sitting here. So like
Okay.
time management, whatever. It's real cute. So like what I teach my clients and what I use on myself, I use everything on myself first. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this totally works. And then I just teach my clients, right? So the first thing is like constraining.
Oh, this was on my list of things to talk about. I'd never heard that.
It's my favorite thing. Because here's
Maybe describe constraining, what you mean
yes.
by that.
Okay. So what I mean by constraint is it's intentionally putting limits on ourselves. So we are intentionally limiting ourselves to focus on what's most important. And what's most important, quote unquote, is just whatever you decide in that moment is most important. So there's no right or wrong with that. It's just like, right now, this is what's most important, and I'm constraining to focus on this only. So ADHD is not actually a deficit of attention. And this is why it's just very annoyingly named. It is the inability to constrain our focus on one thing long enough to see it through, right? And so we have plenty of focus. It just hops around to everything, to the lawnmower. Like there's a lawnmower dude outside my door right now. Like I'm thinking about, why is he mowing right now? Like the dog is barking. There's just like a lot of things going on, and your focus wants to hop around. And that can look like lots of different intrusive thoughts. It can look like thinking about like what you're going to eat for dinner, or that thing that you've been putting off. It can look like, people coming in the room or whatever. So constraint is something that I am very passionate about teaching all of my clients, because without constraint, there's no way we're going to be able to accomplish anything. But with procrastination, one of the things that I think we do to ourselves unknowingly is we tell ourselves we're going to do 14 things in the next 20 minutes. And then like we set ourselves up for failure, really. And so with constraint applied to procrastination, it's like, what is the one thing that I need to do right now? And then I think with procrastination as well, it's an action, and all of our actions are fueled by a feeling, right? Mm-hmm. So we never take any kind of action without a feeling first. The feeling is like the fuel in the gas tank from which the actions come. So most of the time, the feeling fueling something like procrastination is fear or overwhelm or doubt, right? And so another thing that I always do that I've never done prior is check in with my emotions. Like, what are you feeling? What's going on for you? What's coming up? Why are we scared? Why are we feeling vulnerable? Or like, so with the podcast, it's like, it's vulnerable. There's a lot of people that listen, and I could say something really stupid. Yeah. I could say something like the potential of that happening, right? The probability, it's real high. Yeah. So like having like noticing the vulnerability, which for me is like my least favorite emotion ever. I'd rather experience any other emotion. Hate it. Knowing like, oh, you're just feeling vulnerable. Let's like take a minute and really feel that. Another reason why we procrastinate is because we don't break down our projects like small enough. Yeah. And so we're not really sure what the next step is. And so we're just like,
the big one I'm realizing for me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work though.
To break down the project.
Yes.
Yeah. I think one thing that you could do is just be like, what's the next step? Yeah. Just that. Just that question. Like, okay, what's the next step? Like, I'm only going to worry. I'm going to constrain, and I'm only going to worry about the next step. What our brains want to do is like, listen, if we're going to do that project, we're going to need to know each individual step and how it's going to work out and how it's going to unfold. And so we need A through Z, right? We need all of it. And it's like, no, you start at A and you're just like, okay, what's B? Then you're at B and you're like, okay, what's C, right? And you just like, you work at it just little by little. Now, of course, it doesn't work for everything. There are times when you need like the vision board and the charts and the planning and all of that. But when you are stuck, just asking yourself, like, what's the very next step that I need to take can be really empowering.
I've learned, I feel like having been diagnosed with ADHD has like, there's a lot of reflection that it's kind of allowed me, or I've been able to learn so much more about myself and why. And it's just like so many ahas as far as like what I need in my week, when I should have a meeting in my day, because if I have a meeting with a 2-hour gap, that 2-hour gap's completely useless to me.
I totally
that
agree.
feels like nothing can be done. You feel that too?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like that day is shot.
Yeah.
Or if I have a meeting in the morning, it's like I have to, it's almost like for me to have a productive like desk day.
Yeah.
I need nothing in my day. I have to start immediately with productivity. I can't start with like, you know, I have a meeting with somebody and then now I got to go into productivity mode on my laptop. Like that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't have any of the awareness or, you know, mindfulness to acknowledge these things probably until recently. And now I'm just trying to go all client meetings as much as possible on Wednesdays.
Yes.
I get the whole day be meetings, try to keep Mondays open, so on and so forth. And I just like the thing that you were talking about, like, sometimes I put tasks on my to-dos that are just too vague.
Yep.
And it's like technically emailing that person really actually has a more legitimate step before that. So I just don't do it. And I've realized that about myself too. One thing I do find I struggle with, I'm curious if this is something that you struggle with. Like if you tell me to look at my projects and go, okay, like what's the priorities? Like I look at it and I'm like, it's all a priority. And then I'm like, I feel very paralyzed. And a lot of the times what happens to me is like, it's a very like up and down feeling of burnout, because it's like I've procrastinated because I just got off a burnout of like recovering from the previous procrastination.
Right.
And then you have to go so hard. Then your house is the way my house is right now, where it's just in complete and utter shambles and like not like anyway. Yeah. And so, and then, okay, you get past the peak.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, there's deadlines, but you know what? I'm just going to take a breather. And all of a sudden the breather turns into shit. It's all, everything's due again. So what happens is like, I look at my to-do, I'm like, literally all of it is due now. But I'm working with my coach. I started to realize like, maybe there's a lot of that I'm self-imposing. It's like, whatever. So if the client, what if I fail? It's not the end of the world, you know, like if I piss a client, what are you going to do? But it all feels like a priority. It's like, I'm realizing I'm a very like all or nothing. And I don't, when I start to go through and be like, star everything as a priority, all of a sudden I've starred the entire list.
So what would the experience be like for you if you said it's not all a priority? There are 2 priorities, pick 2.
Basically, like there's a gun to my head. You can only pick 2. Pick 2. What are they going to be?
And then what?
Well, I mean, I've been on anxiety meds, like I've said, and I feel like I've been able to let go of some of this a little bit. And I think too soon to say for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been getting there a little bit more and going like, hey, you know, this is what I have to do today. I'm not going to check my email because whatever's in the email is not it's not, nobody's dying. Nobody's burning.
Right.
Their house is not on fire.
Yeah. I used to tell myself, I'm not curing cancer.
Yeah.
I can let this go.
Yeah.
I'm curious what support you have for your, like, why are you in your email?
So, I just hired an assistant.
Good girl.
2 weeks ago. No, last Monday.
Good. No more email for you.
Which is, well, yeah, that's part of the goal, right?
Totally.
I wanted to ask you, do you have an assistant then?
100%. Yes.
Are you good at delegating?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean,
so here's what happened.
Yeah. I'm doing it, but it's hard.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. First, I got to a place in my business where it was growing faster than I could manage. And I didn't see it at the time, looking back, I'm like, oh my word. But at the time I was just like, no, I can do it. I can do it. And then I got to the place of burnout. And so I hired a coach, like a third coach. I'm a little obsessed with coaching. And the first thing she did, she was like, you are hiring an assistant like tomorrow. She actually like made a recommendation. She's like, this person's amazing. I was like, awesome. But the thought of hiring someone and having to take my brain and give it to someone else, that was extremely overwhelming. But I was so desperate that I was willing to do it. And what it looked like was like a solid 3 months of me being like, oh, I forgot this other thing that I need you to do too. Oh, and here's this other thing, and here's this other thing. And it was, I mean, she's amazing. But it was like a lot of emails, a lot of Marco Polos, a lot of Loom videos, you know, like me screen recording, like, this is how I do this. This is how I do this. And what I think, so yes, I get that feeling of like, how do I even communicate all of this? It's just easier if I just do it myself. The truth that's not the truth. No. The truth is
it's a story.
It's a story. The truth is it's so much easier to delegate it. It's so much easier to take that additional 10, 15, 30 minutes, explain to someone how it's done, and then hand it off. It is so much easier. It's harder in that moment. It is easier than exponentially in the long run. And another thing that I want to say is I think entrepreneurs in general, business owners in general, but especially people with ADHD, we are go-getters. We are problem solvers. And we, a lot of times, expect our assistants to be the same, and they're not.
This is a big thing maybe you can relate to. I feel great about who I hired. I'm very excited. I feel like I made the right choice, but I'm outside of that. I've worked with, like, in corporate, I've had employees, I've hired people. Like, I am very easily disappointed.
Yes.
Nobody lives up to the wild expectations that I have. And I had this aha probably a few months ago. I sat down to Dave and I was like, I also hold myself to these standards is the thing. And I said to Dave, like, what if I'm just a little too crazy in my expectations, and maybe I go a little overboard, and like, maybe I just need to reel it in, like not only assistants or employees, like my vendors, and like the quality that I expect. And like, definitely. I'm like, am I too far on, like, is this like showing him like whatever I'm showing him? You know, is this bad to you, or am I being unreasonable? But I also, like, I tried my best to find somebody like that I think is aligned with like what it is that I need. Yeah. I basically want somebody who's going to be my right arm and grow with the business and just be so like trustworthy. But you're right. That feeling of like, you got to let go and know that like not everybody works like you do, and that doesn't make it wrong or right.
Yeah, actually we want people that don't work like us. Yeah. We want our exact opposite. We're the visionary, we're the strategist, we're the driver. We want someone who's going to be very black and white, who's going to be able to follow directions exactly and perform tasks consistently. Like that is not me. None of those.
Like, I'm very inconsistent.
Yes. So we want someone who's a rule follower. We want someone who's like going to come to you. Like, I think a lot of us get like annoyed when assistants come and they're like, what do you want me to do with this? And we're like, figure it out. Come on. You know, but that's because we are the problem solvers. We are the strategists. We are not like, we have to remember that the assistant role is not the problem solver role. It's the fulfiller. Like they are fulfilling whatever we ask. So my relationship with Christina, first of all, she's like a doll and I adore her, but also like, she's not a visionary. She's not driving strategy. She's not solving problems other than, oh, like this person missed a payment. I know how to solve that problem by doing X, Y, Z. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's just been amazing. And I do not like, the email situation, like going back to email. So I have like a personal email, but then we have like a focused inbox. And
So sorry, you have a personal email for your business and then a focused inbox for your business. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. No, I'm sorry. So my coaching program is called Focused. And
I see what you're saying.
The title of the inbox is like Focused at I have
Got it.
ADHD.com. Right. So, but my personal email is more like, even my one-on-one clients don't email me. Like, it's just very rare. So the people who email me are my assistant, my Facebook ads person, my web developer, like my actual team. That's who emails me. Anybody who has a question about the program, anybody who has a question about coaching, any other thing, that's Christina at the Focused email. I don't touch it. I don't even go in there now. Like, I don't even.
You got my wheels turning.
It's amazing.
And does she, I'm just trying to translate this to one-on-one, like my client work. Cause I want to get to that point. I'm like, I want you to be able to go through my email, but maybe now it makes more sense to have my direct personal email, but then start to have people that my clients work from a hello at, which is what my email is. But does she have to come to you a lot just to like figure out how to respond to certain things? Like,
I mean, she did it first, but we get a lot of the same questions. And so the first month, she would either come to me or I was still in the inbox at that time.
Yeah.
And I would respond and kind of ping her and be like, hey, like when we get this type of question, here's a template for the answer. Okay. And so there was a lot of that, but I'm sure it's shocking, but I'm sure you get the same types of questions over and over and over from clients. And some of them are unique and you need to answer them, but a lot of them are going to be the same type of question. Mm-hmm. And just have a template. And you don't have the template. She has the template.
Yeah.
One of the things that I had her do, like when we set up our first call, I was like, I want you to do all of this, but as you're doing it, I want you to write a standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
And so every time I tell her something to do, she adds it to the SOP so that if she, God forbid, ever stops working with me, like the next person, I don't have to say all the things. Like they already have like a manual of what to do.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of like, I've already started getting her to just even schedule appointments. Like I use Acuity, but it's still like with a client figuring out the time. And I'm just like, she has access to my calendar. I mean, it's a week and a half in, it's going to take time for us to get there, but that's ultimately the goal for me. But now I like when I get a good nugget, like I feel like I'm going to separate my Michelle email with an email that's like, we both have access to.
Yep.
I really like that idea actually.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, is your admin virtual?
Yeah, she's in Colorado. So I'm in Pennsylvania. She's in Colorado. I wish she was here. We would have so much fun, but we wouldn't get a lot done, I don't think. So yeah, she's virtual. I feel very connected to her. So we email, we Marco Polo, we text. So I feel really connected to her.
Yeah. And is she full-time?
No. I think she is now billing for 25 hours a month.
Okay.
So it's not even a ton.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah. I have mine at 20 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, but the money's scary. I'm not going to lie to you, but I also, I'm like, there's going to be a transition period where I'm not going to see the return on that immediately, but I truly believe in my core, like once, like I need this support. It was just like, I realized I'm like, I cannot do all of this, especially like as an achiever. I'm like, I don't want to just have one or two clients. Like I want to be able to, reach certain thresholds and certain things. And if I'm like, I can't do it all. And I can't live like with this like imbalance of like, just constantly feeling like I'm never getting everything I need to get done. But already just like being able to give her certain things like on my to-do list and every Monday, like it feels amazing. Just like these like very like just task-based like administrative things that would 100%. Really weigh me down. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that cuts down on procrastination so much.
Yes.
When you are truly focusing on, can't think of any, like your magic, like the thing that only you can do. And so the question that I ask myself as I'm delegating is like, can someone else do this?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
No one else can coach, right? Like that's me.
Yeah.
But most of the other things, someone else can do. And so that's just another example of constraint. Like that's just constraint. It's constraining what I'm allowing my brain to care about. I do not care about emails anymore. I don't even go into my like Stripe account. Like she handles that. She sends me weekly numbers. Like I don't even go in there. What else don't I care about? I don't care about editing my podcast. I have a producer that does that now, which was that for me was
gave me,
really hard to hand off. Yeah. Cause I was like, I can do this. Like it's pretty
that's the biggest barrier for
producer.
me is the editing. I can totally do it, but damn if I do it on time.
If you need a good podcast producer, I have a great recommendation.
You did. You gave it to me already.
Oh, good.
I already asked you because
I totally forgot.
Okay, so a big one was when I listened to the episode where you talked about the constraining, I was like, oh my God, I freaking love that so much. And then I think maybe you referenced that you had finally I don't know what prompted me to ask you, but somehow I knew you had found someone.
Yeah.
And it's like, I also want to do video content, but I'm like, it's hard to feel good about the money you're spending when it's more of a long-term play. So you can't see that return right away. I know I can edit video. I do it all the time. And I'm not bad considering I don't have any true, I don't know, I taught myself, but it's so much work. It's so much work. Right.
Yeah.
But, with regards to the constraining, how did you find it took a minute to train your brain to remind yourself, hey, what were your strategies for hey, PS, get out of your email? Like I have actual apps that help me not do that, but things like just training your brain to remember that I have constrained that. Like sometimes Dave might come in, my partner, and all someone has to say to me is like, oh, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I was in the middle, so I'll leave, or I'm just really annoyed that I'm in hyper focus. But what were your strategies for reminding yourself to stop the?
I think for me, the best answer I can give is when I would get to that state of overwhelm.
Yeah.
That's when I knew, okay, like there's too much going on here. I need to get rid of some of it. Okay. Because when I am in my magic, like what I am doing best and what I think really drives my business forward, it's not overwhelming. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It feels incredible. When I'm doing too much of the admin or just whatever, like in my life, that's when I get overwhelmed. And that's the immediate indicator of like, I need to constrain. Okay, and then I hand things off and I'm like, okay. Overwhelm equals I need to constrain.
That's so good. That is really good. It's a tough thing because I do feel like hiring some of this stuff out, which is very scary, right? I don't know if you felt like it's just scary to be putting money out and.
No, it feels amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. You're like, I got
it's amazing.
I'm just like, boop, boop, boop. But I do feel like there's just certain things that I love styling, but I keep going like it's the schlepping part of it all that's really ruining it for me. And I'm like, I've got to crack the code and I don't know what that looks like, but she helped me do some sourcing. Well, it's okay. But she helped me do some sourcing for certain boxes that I needed for a client and just things that it was totally fine. And she just sent me pictures and it was amazing.
Yeah. More of that.
Yeah. So I feel like that is a really good nugget that I'm going to remember, that when it starts to feel overwhelming, it's probably because I'm doing too many things that are not my jam.
Yeah.
And the hiring and delegating will help.
How much more money could you make if someone else was doing the schlepping, or if someone else was doing the podcasting? For me, that's how I thought about it, because the assistant just made sense. I was like 100% done. Let's do it. When my coach 3 weeks later was like, okay, it's time to hire a podcast producer. I was like, wait, what? That to me was this is just an extra hour in my day or an extra 2 hours. Why would I pay someone $500 a month to do that or whatever,
Yeah.
But what it was for me was, number one, it's not just an extra hour or two, because there is a whole lot of drama that comes when I have to edit a podcast. And it is such a much more overwhelming task to record when I know it's not just write the content, record the content, then it's edit and publish it's like there's too many steps. So hiring her has actually made me so much more consistent and making me so much more money.
Yeah.
Right? It's like shocking.
I assume your podcast also does drive your business fairly effectively. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you the one who publishes it and then puts it on your social media, or do you have your assistant do that?
Okay. So I just hired someone to help me with Instagram. Just like in the last couple weeks.
And what does that look like, helping with Instagram? Like, what does that role
look
like?
What that looks like is scheduling 3 posts a week from content that I already have, which I know I could do, which is why it's taken me this long to do it, right? So scheduling 3 posts a week, replying to DMs and comments, not all the time because I get in there and reply, but there are times when I avoid posting because knowing that I'm going to have to like interact. Which is the point. Like it is the point. So I don't want to sound like a jerk because that's the point. I want to engage. I want to interact, but it's like, okay, it's like 10 a.m. on a Monday. I could easily post something, but then I'm just going to post and ghost because I've got stuff to do. Right. So it's like, if I have Selena, I know that she's going to be there, like responding to people, engaging, being polite and wonderful and awesome. Then I can just show up and like, I can hop on stories and not be like, it just sounds terrible. It's like, you hop on stories and then it's like, well, now I have to like go into my DMs and like respond to people. And that just gets it's like for our brain, it's just not what we need to be holding us back. Like the point is to go on, to show your face, to tell people that you love them and that you care about them, to offer the value that you have to give. That is what the magic is. And that's what people need. And like when they like give a heart to it or they like respond, I don't know how to do it. Wow. The words are not coming out of my mouth. So anyway, when they respond or engage, to just have like a, hey, thanks for like, great. Yeah. Heart emoji, thumbs up, whatever. Yeah. That is just like important to me. And so I always held this standard of like, I have to respond to every single message. And then I would just not post because like, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yes.
So it's now
like I had to be like in the perfect frame, like frame to engage, kind of like having a phone call or whatever. It's like I'm mentally into this.
So then we can't be consistent because I don't know how I'm going to feel next Wednesday when I schedule this post, right? So that's what she does. She schedules posts. It's content, like it's not her words, it's mine. They come out 3 times.
When you say that, it means like you're pre-writing them all, but she's just going to post them?
No, she grabs
your language.
No, she grabs them from emails that I've written.
Okay.
Or workbooks that I've written.
Gotcha.
And she also does like podcast audio as well. So she'll like grab the audio from like a little 30-second clip and put that up.
Oh, she'll actually like go build it to put it up kind of thing. Yeah, I see that all the time. I'm like, how do they do that? I could figure it out, but bottom of the list. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I've never done it personally because I was the exact same. Like, oh, that looks cool. Yeah, that looks like something I'm not going to do for myself.
I feel bad that I haven't done it. Oh my God,
beat myself up for it. Yeah, for sure.
I feel like this conversation is like really inspired me to look more into outsourcing. Like, I think I think for those listening, let's pretend there's people who decided to listen even if they weren't ADHD.
Totally.
And I think it's like about training my brain to remind myself like long term, this is going to help me focus and bring in more money. And I think it's so hard to see past sometimes, like, I just put a bunch of money into this and you just feel like, oh shit. But if you're consistent on social media, podcasting, if you're, able to execute on what your magic actually is because someone else is doing this shit that's not your magic, then that's going to snowball and build and grow.
The ROI on that is huge. And I would say, I just want to like bring it around to personal life. It's the same. So like I have 3 boys. I want to be a really good mom to them. I'm a really terrible mom when I am stressed about cooking and cleaning. Let's outsource cooking and cleaning. Like that's not my priority. I don't care about that stuff. Right. So like I don't cook. I don't clean. Right. I like the time that I have with my kids, my magic is relationship or just like not killing them. Cause sometimes like that's magical is just like, not
I can handle what you're doing right now and I'm not going to lose my shit.
Exactly. So like, I think outsourcing just applies to like every area of your life. And again, it's just that idea of constraint. What is the actual priority here? Is it that I make this boxed mac and cheese perfectly? Is it that I like put a beautiful meal on the table? Or is it that I like invest in relationship with my kids? Like I'm going to choose invest in relationship every single day. And so like cereal for dinner or someone else's cooking, awesome. And don't beat myself up about that anymore. I used to. I don't anymore.
I love that so much. And, COVID kind of throws a wrench into things as far as like, I'd love to get a cleaning lady in here stuff, but whatever. I find it so interesting. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes you just talk to people at the right time. And I feel like this was just another, because I've been very much like, I just hired an assistant, which is like scary and amazing and incredible. And I've been thinking about hiring like a junior designer, which is scary and it's crazy. I'm like, I don't know how I got here because I'm also doing ADHD coaching, but also business coaching. And I'm just like, now you're reinforcing this idea of outsourcing. And it's just like one more reminder that I just got at the exact right time to kind of put things into motion and just trust. I talked about this. I had coaching this morning and I was talking with like, it's group coaching. I think there was like 6 of us on today. And I was just like, this whole hiring right now, it's that feeling of like, it's kind of going back to the feeling in first year of starting a business. It's like terrifying, but you did it. You ripped the Band-Aid off and you went through many growing pains of like working your way through the, craziness that was that. And I feel as though 4 years in, I just kind of allowed myself to plateau and a little bit of the fear of the overwhelm, and not wanting to push myself too hard because I'm afraid of being too overwhelmed and going crazy, right? So now I'm just like, you know what? It's scary, but hiring and outsourcing, I really think it's like time to rip that Band-Aid off and go through the year of like figuring it out and get to that next level.
I love that. And I think that is your ticket out of overwhelm and to the next level. It for sure was for me. My business wanted to grow so much more than I was capable of allowing it to.
How long were you in that place before you decided to pull the trigger?
That's a great question. I would say probably not that long, like 6 months to a year.
And you were just like, it's time.
Yeah, because I just saw how I was losing clients, like not able to sustain. I wasn't able to take anybody new. I couldn't scale. I was just, I could see like that it just
leaving
wasn't
money on
working.
the table here. Yeah.
Leaving money on the table. Yes. Not losing clients. I love that. And it was coinciding with COVID in our area. And so I had 3 kids home. I was like, my husband and I were both working from home. It was so crazy. And after about 2 or 3 months of that, I was like, I will pay anyone any amount of money to help me right now. And I paid $10,000 for coaching, which is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And, put half of it on a credit card and was like, it's not, like, I was so desperate. And she I think
do we want to give her a shout out?
Quadrupled. No, what is it? What is it when it's 5? Like, I'm making 5 times as much because of like all of the changes that she's had me made. Yes. Samantha Siffring, Mama to CEO is her program. I'm not in the program, but I do one-on-one coaching and she is amazing. Any mom who is scaling a business and has kids who wants to like have good boundaries and grow a big business. So fun.
I mean, I know there's a lot of moms listening, so
My
check it out.
gosh.
And I will tag
So
her
good.
too
Yeah, that would be
when
great.
I finally post it on Instagram, because sometimes I don't do that.
Girl, I feel you 100%.
Okay, before you tell everybody where they can find you, I have one last question, and I am curious. After hiring your assistant,
Mhm.
how long did you feel like it took to get her into a place where you're like, all right, we're feeling good now? Like, I want to mentally check myself right now. Realism check. I don't know what that means. But anyways, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So the first month was harder because I was having to explain everything while I was doing it. Right? Yeah. So like you can't just respond to the email. You have to like bring your assistant into that and be like, hey, like here's how I would respond to this email. Here's this template, blah, blah, blah. Right? So like the first month I would say is actually harder, and it should be harder. Like welcome it. It's great.
Yeah.
Right? So
when you brought her in, are you like zooming her in, or do you just mean like, what do you mean? Like,
so like I would either just like CC her on an email or BCC her on the email, or I would create a Loom video. It's free, like screen recording. So anytime I was in like my bank account, Stripe, the back end of the membership, like all of that, I was doing Loom videos and just sending them her way, like add this to the SOP. She has all the Loom videos in some file somewhere, like some magical little rainbow place where neurotypical people keep things and don't lose them. I don't know. So like she has that somewhere. So the first month was harder. The second month started to feel like, oh, okay. Like I see how this could be a little bit easier. And the third month I was like, oh, this is why people hire assistants. Cool. Okay. So I would say give it 3 months, full months of like, in that fourth month, when the fourth month started, I was like, please don't ever leave me. I love you so much. I will give you anything. Like, please don't ever leave me.
I know, that's so funny. You didn't feel weird like bringing her into like the banking stuff?
It took me a minute, but you can give people different levels of access. So like I use Stripe for all of my banking or like billing, and you can give people different levels of access. Gotcha. So like now, no, totally don't feel weird about it. It took me about like probably 6 weeks before I shared my credit card info, the business account. Yeah.
So like, I mean, I had no choice. Yeah. Like you need to keep up for me.
Exactly. Yeah. It just depends on the person. Yeah. That took me a minute. Now she like updates billing and does all the things in that way.
I mean, the thing with the credit card too is like, I'm going to know if you're stealing from me pretty quickly. So
yeah. Same with Stripe.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so tell everybody, well, first of all, if you are, I mean, I feel like if you're listening still, you probably either think you might have ADHD or you do have ADHD. And if you're not listening to her podcast, I love it. It's so good. Very relatable. I feel like we'd be friends. But tell everybody about your podcast and maybe your courses and where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Sure. So my podcast is called I Have ADHD. It's a very creative name.
Very
so it's the I Have ADHD podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also listen to it on my website, which is ihaveadhd.com. And that's where you can find information on my program, which is called Focused, which is for educated professional adults with ADHD who are wanting to create better results for themselves, which is it's so fun. We have the best time.
I love it. And what you said you had 2 businesses before, piano and tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like? I mean, I feel like you have a very well-oiled machine. I feel like obviously you've been working with business coaches. What does it feel like to be, I assume this is way more successful than those businesses?
Yeah, way more.
What does it feel like? Are you like, how the hell did I get here? Like, this is incredible.
No, it feels terrible. No, I'm serious. So here's
great.
So true is that like when you get the thing that you've always wanted, it actually feels kind of terrible. You're just like,
there's only down
a little scary. It's a little vulnerable. We have this, our brain doesn't like having more than it usually has. So there's this like, incapacity to have, which is why a lot of people like get money and then they get rid of it really quickly because having it feels really weird. So yes, on one hand, it feels amazing. I'm so proud. I love what I've built, and like I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you, honey. And then on the flip side, at the same time, I'm like, this feels terrible. I'm probably doing it wrong. The grownups are going to come, like wherever they are, those grownups like that know what's going on. I don't know. Like they're going to come and be like, yeah, you're doing it wrong. We're going to have to like take all
They're
this
going to find you out.
They're going to find out. Yeah. So like there's all of that. So I think it's so important for everyone, every human to know that like when you get the thing, like you still feel like ass half of the time. It's just like
if you already felt like ass, you're not going to feel better when you get the thing.
Right.
You listen to the Armchair Expert podcast?
I have listened to it like a couple episodes. I like it, but it's not one of my regulars.
Oh, it's my like number one.
Oh, but, number one.
But Dax Shepard talks about that a lot. He's like, you know, you get the thing and like you don't feel any different about yourself. Like it's not like I got the thing and now I'm confident.
Yes, exactly. So one of my coaches, Brooke Castillo, she says that life is 50-50. And I love that. Like it's 50% negative emotion. It's 50% positive emotion. No matter who you are, who you're married to, what your bank account says, what job you have, like it doesn't matter. You're still going to have the 50-50. And so like successful business, scaling to $1 million next year, it's amazing. Like that's great. It's still 50-50. I still have 50% positive emotion, 50% negative emotion. It might be a different 50-50, but it's still like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Amazing. Things to look forward to.
Listen,
that's real though, which I appreciate. Like,
yeah, I'm just not going to be able to BS you ever.
I'm very much appreciate that. And I think too, it's important for people to know, like, sometimes people are like, everything just looks so perfect from the outside. And it's like, let's be honest. Like,
no way.
It's messy out there.
And that's why the journey, like enjoying the process matters. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a goal in mind, like 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, like $1 million. And we think like, oh, when I get there, then I'm going to feel good. Or when I get there, then I'm going to be happy or confident or whatever. It's like, no, when you get there, you're still going to be the same you. Mm-hmm. So like you might as well enjoy the process and like learn as you go and make the most of where you are right now. And just, how about we just start being confident now? Yeah. Why do we need to wait until that point? How about we just start enjoying this now? We don't need to wait for that. And so I think that's the work of all of our lives, because for some reason our brains want us to be like, oh yeah, for me, it was like, oh, when I have kids, like I'm just going to be so happy and so fulfilled, and which is like the funniest, most ironic thing ever.
That's hilarious. And I think too, what you were saying, like, if we're going to want to enjoy the process, like we might as well build businesses that we like. And like, if I'm just building a business that makes me feel overwhelmed every day of my life, like I need to like pump the brakes and figure this shit out, because I tell you what, this is not what I want. Like
100% agree.
Like, yeah,
100%. I love that. I love the idea of you like delegating and doing your magic, like spending the majority of your time, 80% of your time doing the thing that you like only you can do. And that like the reason why people hire you, you know, that you're like so good at that. That's what is fun. And then everybody else who's like has a different skill set can do all the annoying stuff. Yeah.
I need a schlepper. All right.
That's our takeaway from today, folks. We need a schlepper.
A professional schlepper. Oh, the schlep is real. I said that to Dave yesterday. I'm like, man, the schlep is real. I can't
so
do
good,
schlep, man. All right, lady. Well, I'm very glad that you remembered and you came back. You didn't ghost me forever.
No, I love it.
I hope we'll chat again soon, and have an amazing weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Bye.
I actually put on a bra for you. I didn't even put on a bra for her. I know. You're welcome.